Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to the 42nd audio file on the Q News Patriot Rumble Channel series. I am the Q News Patriot, coming to you today with Dr. Jennie Hsu. My name is SG Anon. Dr. Hsu and I had the opportunity recently to connect at an alternative healthcare event, an event focused primarily on the redesign of the Western healthcare model and the reining in of the extraordinarily high levels of corruption and malfeasance and nefariousness that have taken over those arenas. And we felt it really important to bring, to the Patriot fold and to the Patriot discussion, not only how this may be accomplished, but also some of the steps that Patriot practitioners everywhere are already taking. Dr. Hsu has a fantastic history in internal medicine, very much coming from that side of the fence, modern medicine, allopathic medicine, treated, in the ways that we were taught. And then, of course, over the last 5 to 7 years, like so many others, she has experienced a great spiritual and personal changeover that has led her to apply her talents, her skill sets, and her knowledge and expertise in assisting Patriots in a true journey towards health and wellness. It's my honor to have her here. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Hsu.
Thank you so much, SG. It is truly an honor to be on your show and to be able to connect with all the Patriots out there.
Well, the honor is truly mine because when we have this discussion more and more on these open information channels online, we're reseeding, I think, and redesigning our expectations and our beliefs and understandings about how certain systems in our world are supposed to work and how they have worked. And you have a very fascinating perspective, having come from that allopathic Western medicine model, then having been very, very involved in the Eastern medicine model, the energy healing. I think off air you referenced that you were actually a recognized kahuna. And so that's an extremely, I think, diverse set of backgrounds. So if you don't mind, Dr. Hsu, do you care to just let my audience know, a little bit about you, where your history is, and what brought you to the awakening?
Yes, it's everybody has that individual story, so I appreciate the chance to share it. I would say that it was probably a very gradual type of awakening, like many people out there. And it was kind of the understanding of that, had kind of the dark night of the soul experience with the end of a 25-year marriage. But what I learned from that it was an opportunity for me to grow. And so this was around at the end of 2016. And the way I got through that was finding that I had to really focus on taking care of myself. And the way I did it was through exercise, yoga, meditation, and I felt great. And so I was really inspired at that time to really discover how I could support the people I had been taking care of for all these years. And so I started on the path of looking into what were the elements of wellness. And so I was practicing in a large institution in central Illinois. And so I actually found lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine is a recognized specialty. It's science-based, and I come from a science background in molecular and cell biology. And so I was just fascinated, just all the research that was there that had been around for decades, but not necessarily, let's say, known in the traditional Western allopathic world. And the lifestyle medicine, the pillars are very similar to the blue zones that you hear about all over the world, people who in these cultures have lived the longest and healthiest. And so that was really part of the shift. I also then realized when I became a health and wellness coach is that we're meant to be healthy and whole, and that this process of dis-ease is something that is really an opportunity to kind of tap into the innate intelligence of the body to see what the connection is. Because part of what I realized in my training, and there's actually another aspect of a field of study called German New Medicine, which if you go into the story of that, it's very suppressed. But it is recognizing that even many physical ailments are related to emotional or mental causes. However, those can be healed. And so it was very interesting because it was one thing after another. Of course, this was simultaneously for me to understand what was happening in the rest of the world, especially, started with understanding what was happening in the financial system, and just, again, starting to see why things didn't fit, what was going on that made it corrupt, as well as leading really to, at all levels, the political system and so forth. And I became increasingly aware that I just couldn't stay in the system. I had tried to advocate what I was learning about, and there was interest, but there were other agendas at play, let's put it that way. And so it was this decision I made around the time of the pandemic, let's put it that way, that I realized I needed to get out of the system. And so I left what I did in June of 2021. And again, it's all about synchronicities, which I've come to discover, which at that time I was introduced to neurolinguistic programming. I found it fascinating that you could really help people heal with understanding language and the use of language, because, language has energy and words have an impact. And so that, along with what I was introduced to with German New Medicine, I started working with people, coaching them. But as a master practitioner in NLP, I heal people through something called the quantum timeline. So we heal issues related to past lives or ancestral trauma or this current lifetime. And so what I do is really a synergy of practicing as a lifestyle medicine physician, health wellness coach, and in my NLP work, there are many tools I have along with hypnosis. And then I did also go on to train in Huna energy healing, which is an ancient Hawaiian Polynesian form of healing. So I know that's quite a mouthful, but those are things that I've been very passionate about, and just helping people get to the bottom, the roots, because this will help in the awakening when we clear all the things that have maybe kept us from our true potential.
That was very beautiful and not a problem at all on the thoroughness of the answer. It's very appreciated, actually, because as we look at the landscape of changing healthcare, wellness, and even finance ties into that, I think, in a great deal. Business ties into that in a great deal, right? We've got a commercialized healthcare system. We can all acknowledge this, and we're not going to be able to extricate from that immediately. But what you've described was a very logical and gradual process of, sort of slow divergence from that and into an emergence of something new at the same time. And you said something very interesting just a moment ago, Dr. Hsu, and I'd actually like to go back and talk about it a little bit. You said that language is energy. And one of the things that has always fascinated me and really sort of shows in my cerebral, composition and lens on life is how the human brain and the human mind specifically function as almost like an interdimensional circuit board, and how language itself, the manifestation of our sounds into words and phonics that we can communicate with one another, how that sort of transmutes that thought form, that thought wave energy into an actionable declaration here in the real world, right? And we know that even the Bible comes out and says that death and life are in the power of the tongue specifically. So when you describe language and neurolinguistic programming and things like that, for the audience out there that may not really fully understand what that is, or may not understand how that's connected, why words are important, could we dial in just a moment on that? And could you help explain why that is?
Yes. And that's a wonderful topic to explore. So language has different frequencies. And so this has been shown even scientifically. Some of your viewers may know, and I'm sure you know, about Dr. Emoto's work, and just how language spoken to water could create different patterns of crystals, from beautiful ones if there were very positive emotions such as love and peace, to very disordered structure of the water when there were words such as hate being spoken to the water. Well, as many people know, we are made mainly of water. And so you can imagine that when we speak a word, there's actually a translation into it's a mathematical process along with sacred geometry where it does define the type of shape you might actually see visibly, let's say in a water crystal. But this is the same thing as what water is inside our body. And so you can imagine that if those can translate in something external, those things are the same for us. So when people focus on thoughts that are difficult to, let's say, let go of, such as, they are not good enough or they're not worthy, that may have a particular resonance with the water and form a particular pattern. And so there is a direct connection between that language, whether it's the language internally, the thoughts we think of, and even our emotions can change kind of really the biology fundamentally through biochemical translations of that energy down, not only through the water, but into the DNA that really can alter the expression of the DNA. And so it really gives pause to people to think about just how much power they do have. But the power can be shifted from something negative to something very much more positive. There are psychology experiments that do show that most people, unfortunately, have very negative thoughts. And sometimes some of that is due to what we call conditioning. So this is maybe when they were born, they were, let's say, raised in an environment where people may adopt the patterns of thought and feeling that they pick up from their parents or the family or whoever is their caretaker. And so there is a potential to really shift that, because part of it is that we're, as humans, we're beings of habits. And so even the habits can be these patterns of thoughts, unless if you are very mindful and aware of really the thoughts and feelings you have.
That is really remarkable and incredible to bring up, because what you're talking about, and as you were explaining, how this works at that symbiotic relationship level between the thought energy of the human being and the expression biologically, and how that resonance specifically through water, but other aqueous mediums also can affect, how our health actually, manifests itself and continues to replenish itself going forward. And I kept thinking about MK Ultra. And one of the things that really stuck out to me as you were describing this is that, the MK Ultra program, and we've talked about it a lot on this particular show, the audience out there is probably very familiar with it, was one of the largest, if not the largest, psychological warfare operation ever contrived in all of human history. And one of the things that it did, especially to the NATO Western world, North America, Western Europe, and all of the Commonwealth realms with a great severity and fervor, was it created a mental landscape, an emotional and mental landscape of pain, suffering, and anguish. In other words, if you're suffering mentally, it doesn't really matter if you're physically in pain or not, right? Because the perception of that happens, of course, through the feelings, through the mind, excuse me, through the emotional and mental interaction, and the physical interaction sort of adds, I think, substance to that in our walk through life. So what you just described, and I know I'm waxing a little bit on this, but it's to paint the context, and I just want your opinion on it. What you've just described as a self-reinforcing closed system, a system where MK Ultra, in league with the media and various institutions of power, create a mental and emotional landscape, over and with and throughout a population group, which then lends itself to a prevalence of dis-ease, which then reinforces the big pharma model, which we know financially supports most of those entities I just referenced a moment ago. Am I missing something in this assessment?
No, you're perfectly correct. It's a lot of different forces that have created the state that we're at. Obviously, this has been going on this control system has been going on for several thousands of years. And we've reached a point where there's a shift in energy that's coming into our world. And that's helping to, yes, put energy towards people having kind of the awareness that things are not exactly fitting. And thus, this is kind of leading to what we know about the awakening. But even, yes, these psyops type of just manipulation can be, let's say, overturned with the right kind of tools. And yes, if people are open to the fact that we have had many lifetimes, we are really just a large soul, vast soul, and we are just in this time space as a human being having this experience. But sometimes we have had many different lifetimes that of potentially repeated trauma that can leave an imprint onto the DNA. And even actually, quote unquote, modern science recognizes that. They recognize that stress and trauma can leave imprinting on the DNA. But the good news is that people can make the decision with the concept of epigenetics, which I'm sure many people may have heard of, but it's an idea that you can change the expression of your DNA. And when we have a thought, it actually creates a gravity wave and can start that process of physical manifestation. So when people are aware that they can shift from what we call lower vibrational feelings of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame, which are normal human emotions. But when you say that, make that decision to say, this is enough, I want to create a different type of life for myself. Or let's say that one of the beautiful things is that even when you are doing the inner work for yourself, because of the qualities of the quantum field, where what you do may have an impact on future generations. And if people are open to it, even to past generations and past lives. And so that is one of the reasons why, it's so important for everybody just to be aware of their ability to shift. Because I think that some people may feel that there is a lot around us that is affecting us when ultimately we do have the ability to control our thoughts, our emotions, and how we react to things.
That is so simple and yet so very profound. We have the ability to control our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, irrespective of the external conditions which are impressing upon us a desire to react in this way or that way or the other. I remember reading a book a long time ago by a gentleman named Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And Mr. Frankl, I believe, was a prisoner of Nazi Germany during the Second World War, repositioned and relocated multiple times throughout the war in prisoner form, and increasingly more exposed to death, chaos, and madness. And yet, at the same time, he managed to scrape together a compendium of his own evaluations as sort of looked on from outside himself. And that later became the basis for his book. And it just serves to remind us how powerful the consciousness that we all have, how powerful the connection with the Holy Spirit of the living God really truly is when we look at what the human being is capable of doing. And I believe physiologically and anatomically empowered to do in a world that's not manipulated through fluoride and barium. And that being, and that sort of takes me in the next direction, if I can, Dr. Hsu here, it's talking a lot about, spiritual components and how the mind and the body sort of meld together to be a holistic unit, and one cannot, function in an appropriate homeostatic balance without the other. So where does that fit with quantum? We've seen things like frequency medicine. We hear a lot about quantum wellness, quantum energy enhancement and reactivation, things like that. Why is that so important? And why is that, in your professional opinion, as much as you're willing to say. Why is that the next true breakthrough in medical science?
Oh, yes, that's a wonderful area to explore because at some level, this is part of the agenda of keeping our real power from everyone because we are really always connected with our higher sacred self. And there is that connection, the direct connection to God, source or creator. And we are also connected with what we call our subconscious mind. Now, our subconscious mind is very intelligent and will store lots of memories, even if we're not conscious of it. And so sometimes people have described our conscious mind as being the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, because the part of our self that is the subconscious and the superconscious is just this vast kind of expansion of just energy, consciousness that is available. And so part of the work is to open that channel to being really who you really are. And when people are aligned with their superconscious, conscious, and subconscious, they can lead really amazing lives. And when there is a misalignment of, let's say, what may be really your true passion, the things that you would love to do, but you think you can't do it, or you think you have to follow a different path, this is what can sometimes create the dis-ease, kind of the unbalance, that imbalance that you can see for people. And it may manifest in different kinds of ways physically. I know that it said that stress accounts for the majority of kind of the recognized diseases out there. And, but, it can translate into different things such as blood pressure problems, sleep problems, issues with your digestion, issues with your heart function. So at many different levels, there are things that can manifest. However, recognizing that really the body is incredible. It has the ability to regenerate itself. And so there's this conditioning that comes from kind of the Western world that you have a quote unquote diagnosis. And so people have to understand that that is a label that goes back to what we were talking about in terms of the power of the language. And so once people recognize that they don't have to choose that model, they can actually create what they want to see, which is why when I founded Wellness Visions, it was the idea that people could build a vision for themselves of what they truly wanted in their life. So yes, there's this aspect of really recognizing in the quantum field that there are infinite potentials and that you are the observer of your life. And so a fun way that I like to kind of have people think about is that you're living in a movie, because it's said, the scientists have said we live in a holographic universe. You're the film script writer, you are the movie director, and you are the actor or actress. If you recognize your ability to shift anything in your life. And so we're really moving away from the Newtonian model in science, this kind of concept of just merely the cause and effect. There's a lot more than that. And we're seeing more of the quantum aspects coming into many fields of science. And again, this is really not only extending into, let's say, people tend to just think of the quantum physics, but quantum biology and how this may really be creating the future. Albert Einstein did say that the future of medicine was frequencies. And so fundamentally, everything in life is about energy. If we go down to the molecular structure of our human body, it's all energy, right? And so it's just something really to think about, that you could make a deliberate decision. Yes, it may be a process, and that is really what we're on. We're on this journey of either taking a path that is aligned with really what our soul is calling us to do. And maybe sometimes we veer off, but there are opportunities for us to be aware of how we can shift back. And so, speaking, just redirecting back to kind of looking at the quantum field and how this might fit in with energy, when we talk about one of the aspects, so of healing with energy is this concept of the scalar waves, which I know, SG, I'm sure you know a great deal of that, but it's this concept that the scalar energy is a primordial force of nature. And so in even the Bible, as we know, when God said that there was light, it literally is the light. The scalar wave is that manifestation of that. We know that it's even faster than the speed of measurable light. And so it's really interesting to just know that there's a vast potential for healing in scalar wave technology. And the scalar wave technology is actually what I discovered about a year after I left. And so I was really very fortunate to find out about the energy enhancement system when Jason Shirka interviewed Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, the inventor of the EE system, a couple years ago. It's almost 2 years. It was May 27, 2022 on Unified TV. And kind of the rest is history for a lot of folks around the world who are beginning to be introduced to the energy enhancement system, because it has many beneficial effects, such as synchronizing the left and right brain, increasing the cellular charge across the membranes, balancing the energy across the chakras. And there's just a lot of testimonials that people are reporting.
It's very interesting that you should go that direction, because that was actually the lead in to my next question about this quantum segment and how that ties into the future of medicine. The EE system is one of these sort of premier technologies that's gotten the captivation of the entire world. And it's one of several, I think, that are focused on scalar regeneration and holistic regeneration of the human body from a fundamental energetic level. I think Dr. Rose Michaels has been quoted several times as sort of plugging the human being back into that celestial light socket. Um, so on that particular thing, I wanted to ask, if you cared to share a little bit of your experience as a practitioner of quantum technology, and then maybe as we close off our discussion today, we'll move into what you think is the most important thing for Patriots to remember going forward when we're embarking upon this redesign of healthcare.
Great. Yes, I've seen some just amazing transformation and members coming to our Wellness Vision Center in Richmond, California. And some are very just visible. We've seen skin rashes start to go away even after a couple of hours under the energy enhancement system. And the other things that may be more subtle, but for example, we had a ICU nurse who was very excited about the technology, and she still is. And she came in for the first time, and she didn't specifically feel anything. And some people may experience that. However, she noticed that she had more energy at work and was really happy about that. And a lot of people report that over time, they've noticed more and more benefits, such as they feel more relaxed, more calm. I just mentioned about how stress is underlying a lot of issues for people. And they have noticed improvements in their blood pressure, to blood sugar, to pain, such as arthritis, even if they've had something long-standing. So it is just remarkable to see the shifts. Now, we do tell people that when they come in, this is a hyper healthy environment for them to be in, but they have to be intentional about what they want to shift inside themselves. So they are part of the key for transforming their health and life. And the other thing that is really wonderful to see is that a lot of people have spiritual experiences. They find a deeper connection to themselves. They find a deeper connection to God. And so that's a wonderful thing to see. Now, we also know that unfortunately we still live in a very toxic environment with EMFs and the things in our water, as you had mentioned, to things in our food system. And so this is why actually the energy health enhancement system is so powerful, because it will help shift the toxins and the energy that are not good for you out of your body. So an integral part of the whole process is actually a detox salt bath that you take after a session. And some people have seen just incredible things come out. But it is possible over time for people to experience just a gradual increase in just lots of things: improvement in mood, more function, more ability to do things. People have reported faster recovery from surgery. So it is just wonderful to see lots of the testimonials, which you can go and find if you go to unifiedhealing.com. We are an affiliate center with Unified Healing Network. And so if you go to the testimonial page, you'll see many people reporting on different things, from improvement with dental conditions to, there is an aspect that it stimulates stem cells. So there's a youthing component. People have noticed their hair turning back to its original color, or growing more hair, to losing weight. And you can see this in many ways, that people just feel more youthful. I am conducting a study at my center where we are looking at just concrete evidence for a biological youthing, is how I like to say it, reversal of age by the length of the telomeres, the ends of our chromosomes. And I like to look at that because where your biological age is may correspond with your health. So I look at it from that aspect of, well, if we can return to kind of our original divine kind of blueprint, we would all be full of energy and ready to really be able to create lots of things in our lives and to live really a full life.
That's sort of a great, I think, area to close off our discussion today, because it is about giving people the opportunity once again. And this, I think, should always have been the goal of healthcare in general, giving people the opportunity to maximize their life again and to self-actualize and realize whatever potential that they have, whatever purpose that they wish to pursue, and whatever inspired action they want to act or choose not to act, right? Because we are free beings exercising free will in concert with that Holy Spirit to bring about, some real beautiful changes here in the world. We're going through a period of time where it's about reclamation of ownership over our institutions, over our elected pulpits of power, over the various theaters of community intersection where crime happens. And yet you've described reclamation of personal ownership and really accountability for the healthcare process, for the health model. We are all, each of us, responsible for our individual health and for how we wish to move along and move forward in the world. And even though it was done without our knowledge, we have been significantly held back in that. And I'm very grateful, Dr. Hsu, that you and others are taking the time to not only, apply these concepts rigorously and academically, but also to add the spiritual component, which provides much needed context, I think, for what health and wellness is always supposed to have been. With that being said, for patriots out there who are perhaps curious about your center, I believe you're located in Richmond, California, or other patriots that may want to participate in academic studies and things of that nature, how and where can people go to find you?
Yes, thank you, SG. So they can go to our website, which is www.wellnessvisions.com, and they can find out about our services. And we're located right across from the San Francisco area. So we're in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. So we would love to have people come and visit our center or any EES center around the world. There's over 400 in the last 2 years. And so this is a movement. This is taking, as you said, our personal power back. But as we take our personal power back, because of the quantum effect, we add to the energy of the collective to recognize that not only do we have the personal power, but we have, yes, that divine spark within us. And so we are going to collectively shift everything in our world by the choices that we make all the time.
Well, I, for one, am extremely excited for the process, and it has been an excellent choice to have you on air today, Dr. Hsu. Thank you very much for joining us. And for the audience out there, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I'll be back with each of you again soon. This is SG Anon. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.